silence of the entire forest was just broken. This is not usually how a tiger makes a kill. My name is Shivang Mehta. I am a nature and wildlife photographer based out of India. I've been spending the last 2 decades documenting wildcats and other rare species of my country. This encounter happened in Ranthambore National Park in Rajasthan in India. Ranthambore is probably one of India's very unique habitats where it's a combination and blend of ancient history and natural history. So the park has got a very unique kind of a habitat with some beautiful lakes, ruins, monuments, and the grand Ranthambore fort in the backdrop. This is a place where wars were being fought at one point of time, and in today's time, wars are still fought, but in the animal kingdom, in the tiger kingdom. The key character around which this story is revolving is T19 Krishna, who was the reigning queen of Ranthambore at that time. I started following Krishna's lineage because I was fortunate enough to document her mother, Queen Machli, the Lady of the Lakes, as she was called. In fact, the most photographed tiger of the world at one point of time. And she died as the oldest surviving wild tiger. So Krishna was Machli's last litter. In 2014, Krishna gave birth to 3 cubs. Those 3 cubs were called Arrowhead, Pac-Man, and Lightning. Arrowhead and Lightning were the 2 daughters, the 2 female cubs, and Pac-Man was the male cub. Pac-Man, in fact, derived his name because of a peculiar mark on his forehead, which resembled that video game which children play called Pac-Man. All 3 cubs were very different from each other. Arrowhead was a much more dominating cub and a bold cub, and Lightning was a bit of a timid tigress, and Pac-Man was also bold, but as in case of all young male tigers, he always used to stick around with his mother. So sometime in the summers of 2015, in the month of April, while we were following this family that day, that morning, it was a very dull morning, nothing much was happening. But we guys are wildlife photographers, so we like trying till the last moment. And so I just saw my watch, and there's still around half an hour, 45 minutes for the park to close for the morning session. So let's take one more round. Just when we were going towards the lake area, there was a stretch which was flooded with around 15-20 vehicles. All the cameras were pointed in one direction, and it was very evident that there's something happening out there. So we decided to park ourselves away from this entire crowd, and our plan was just to wait for some time, and maybe whichever tiger was out there, it decides to move, and we may get some kind of a view. Just when we were waiting, I just turned around and saw that this young bloke, Pac-Man, he had started stalking a deer. And, I just quickly changed my lenses and switched on to a wider focal length because it was too close. And he charged at the deer. Now, when tigers are making their kill, they normally go in for the neck and just choke their prey. And that's when, the prey dies instantly. But in this case, the approach of young Pac-Man was totally wrong because he caught hold of the deer, but from the backside. The deer was struggling in his mouth, and then he dragged this deer to a higher vantage point where he tried to suffocate the deer by sitting on top of it, but still, the deer didn't die. And the whole silence of the entire forest was just broken because of the constant cacophony and the shrilling sounds of this deer. This confused tiger, he decided to just flip around the prey, and he started, eating the deer from the hind side, and the deer was still alive. And this entire struggle continued for around 15 to 20 minutes. That's when the deer died finally. Inexperience was at public display because, this is not usually how a tiger makes a kill, as this inexperienced cub was trying to make, which I consider it as his first kill, because in so many months I had never seen these young cubs, attempting any kind of a hunt on their own. Surprisingly, the mother and the daughter, Arrowhead, they were seen in the vicinity. I could see them standing at my location, but they didn't do anything. The mother could have come and helped his son to successfully complete this hunt, but nothing happened. As this whole drama was unfolding in front of me, my heart was going through mixed emotions. On one hand, there was this tiger I had seen as a cub, and I had followed his journey for 14 months, and I was so happy to see that he had taken those first steps towards becoming an independent wild tiger by making his first kill. And on the other hand, there were those loud, shrilling sounds, painful sounds of the deer. All that, pain and agony, it was very difficult for me to handle. There are a lot of questions which still remain unanswered. It's a mysterious world of tigers. Why didn't the mother come and support this hunt? I feel that the tigress was helping his son to become independent. When I look back and think about this entire incident, my key takeaway was learning about a key human value: being independent. There are moments in life when one bold step has to be taken by every person, and that probably will be the step towards independence. This male tiger cub had taken that particular step that morning. And every time I pass through that area in Ranthambore, those sounds still are quite fresh in my mind. But it would have given so much of confidence to him to become an independent, wild tiger living in solitude.